Cole and I are going to be ranking the 5 best players of the Mike Norvell era. We're going to start at 1, I believe, and kind of work our way down. My number 1 player of the Mike Norvell era, obviously, little backstory, came in 2020 and kind of just the team slightly improved year in and year out after the COVID season, and then the past 2 years after the 13-0 start, we've seen some decline from Florida State. But I still have a little bit of hope in Norvell, and if this is the final year of Mike Norvell, it's great to look back on some of the amazing players he's had and the 2 amazing seasons he had. But my number 1 player, without further ado, I think it's kind of obvious. I'm going to go Jordan Travis, the quarterback. I think it's honestly a no-brainer for him if you're going to put him at 1 or even 2. 3-year starter in his 5 years here in Tallahassee, and the stats speak for himself. Second all-time in Florida State passing yards behind Winkie, tied in for second in passing touchdowns with none other than Jameis Winston, and 4th all-time in rushing touchdowns in his career. And the 13-0 season and the 10-3 season before that, you just can't. Those 2 runs that he had, he was looking like arguably the best quarterback in college football over those 2 years. Almost 6,000 passing yards, close to 600 rushing yards, 58 total touchdowns, 10 turnovers, and a 21-3 record in those 2 years before obviously suffering that basically career-ending injury against North Alabama. And he led Florida State, obviously, their second-best season by record all time. Cole, I want to ask you if you have Jordan Travis at your 1, or if you have anything else you want to add about Jordan Travis. I think it's pretty clear he's got to be in your 1 or 2.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have him at my 1. I know he is very deserving of that position. I actually have him at 2, but obviously one of probably the best player that Mike Norvell himself developed from start to finish. Probably was on pace to maybe be an NFL quarterback before that injury. You can make an argument FSU is one of the top 2 favorites to win the national championship that year, ACC Player of the Year, ACC Offensive Player of the Year as well for that 2023 season. But I unfortunately have him in my 2nd spot. My number 1 spot goes to Jared Verse. I ranked these guys based off of the success they've also had at the next level. Obviously, I think all 5 of these guys we're going to mention on both of our parts are guys that are beloved by Florida State fans that can come back anytime they want, really, to FSU and get a standing ovation at one of the games. But Jared Verse, just based off of the 2 seasons he had at Florida State, he anchored that 2023 defense, which probably one of the greatest college defenses I've ever watched with my 2 eyes. And it's sad that they did not have an opportunity to show it against high-level talent. But they don't win those last 2 games against Florida and then Louisville in the ACC championship without Jared Verse in that 2023 defense. 18 sacks, 29.5 tackles for loss. Then he goes to the NFL draft, 2024 Rookie of the Year, and now a 2-time Pro Bowler with the Rams. So I kind of factored in a little bit of NFL, his production at the professional level, beyond just what he did at FSU. But I have Verse at my number 1.
Yeah, and he's my number 2. So I think it was pretty clear who the 1 and 2 would be, and honestly pretty interchangeable. And like you mentioned, Jared Verse, after winning Defensive Rookie of the Year for the Rams, was involved in the Myles Garrett trade. And that in itself, hearing that he was traded for Myles Garrett, just shows how great of a player he's been. And he's been dominant for the Rams. And in pretty much any other circumstance in the NFL, he's an untouchable player. And obviously, Myles Garrett's a one-of-one talent. And I think Jared Verse has the ability to rack up these accolades as he already has. 2-time Pro Bowler, like you mentioned. But, him being traded for Myles Garrett's not a knock on him in the slightest. If anything, you kind of put that on the resume, like traded for the best defender in football. And Cleveland's still going to build around Jared Verse, and I still expect him to have a great year there in the AFC North after leaving the NFC West. But, back to Jordan Travis, like you mentioned, he was still finished 5th in the Heisman after not playing those final 2 games. And the way he was able – when he comes back on campus, there's people flock to him. He's beloved in the community. And Norvell, this is one of the guys where Norvell actually kind of got as a rough or more of a raw prospect when he came from Louisville. And he was able to develop him into the talent he is. And it kind of still gives some light on Norvell as, okay, maybe he can develop one of these younger quarterbacks to become a great college quarterback, and honestly, one of the best that we've seen in the past couple of years. And it's getting a little bit overshadowed by the lack of an NFL career, like you mentioned. But I mean, if he never got hurt and he played that full season out, he would have played multiple NFL games by now and probably been a top 3-round pick. It's hard to say he would have been a first-round guy, but I mean, like, the talent through the air and on the feet. I mean, that one play I'd never forget, the touchdown against Florida, where he went from ran 50 yards around the field before diving to the end zone. I mean, that's just an all-time Florida State play. It's hard not to have Verse and Travis as these top two players.
It is. And I mean, Jake Trav is pretty much the best FSU quarterback since Jameis. So I think that's why a lot of people flock to him. And it's, the quarterback at Florida State is always the most important position on the team, the most beloved position looking back. Unless you're a guy like James Blackman or DeAndre Francois, then you're not looked upon as kindly. But Jordan Travis was that guy, especially 2022, 2023, and the greatest season that FSU has had since that 2013 season was led by both of those guys we just mentioned.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, moving down from the 1 and 2 spot, my number 3 is actually my only current Seminole still on the roster. I have Deuce Robinson as the third best player in the Norvell era. And it might be a little rich as he's only had one full season. He's about to play his second season under Norvell. But I just think as a talent and my projection for him, I think he arguably can be another 1,000-yard receiver. Obviously, last year he was the first 1,000-yard receiver for the Seminoles since Scary Terry, Tamarion Terry, in 2019. And he was such a highly touted recruit when he committed to USC. I believe he was a 5-star coming out of high school, dual sport athlete, played a little bit of baseball there as well. And when Florida State picked him up, it was kind of a shock that, all right, he's leaving USC and going to Florida State after the season that they had. But, I mean, he came in and dominated. And we've talked about him multiple times on this show. I mean, he was the catalyst to that offense last year. I mean, obviously it was a really run-heavy offense with Tommy Castellanos and Gus Malzahn's play calling, but having Deuce Robinson as that just go up and get a guy was awesome for Tommy. And I think it's hard not to say he'll be a top 64 pick in next year's NFL draft, especially with what you assume he's going to do this season. But I think as a talent and his role as this wide receiver that Florida State really hasn't had, because I think it's pretty fair to say that he clears Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson. Keon obviously only had 1 year in Tallahassee, but I mean, Deuce Robinson already beat him in production, and he's going to almost lap him in production after this season. So I do have Deuce Robinson as my number 3 spot.
I had him at the honorable mention spot for me. I just think one season under the belt, I think he is probably a top 7 or 8 player in terms of talent that Mike Norvell has coach. I'm going to give him one more year. If we do this show in a year's time, Deuce Robinson will be in this top 5. But for me, I have at my number 3 spot, Jermaine Johnson II. So this is basically based off of, I wouldn't say Jermaine Johnson is like a super, super beloved Seminole. If he came back, he wouldn't get like the reception that obviously Verse would get, a guy like Jared Verse. But in his one season at FSU, 70 tackles, 19 tackles for loss, 12 sacks, goes straight to the draft. He hasn't been super great at the NFL level, has dealt with a lot of injuries. That year, he led the ACC in tackles for loss, sacks. He was all ACC first-team defensive line. So just that one season alone, and he was also the ACC Defensive Player of the Year that year. That one season alone, also Norvell's second year, he needed someone like that on the defensive side. But another guy who his talent hasn't translated a ton to the NFL, but still a first-round pick for Norvell, his first ever first-round pick. And just the production that Jermaine Johnson had that one season at FSU gets him the nod at my 3 spot.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned, I mean, he kind of laid the groundwork for Norvell being like, all right, I kind of need one of these dominant edge rushers. And then obviously went out and picked up Jared Verse the following year, and he was dominant in his 2 years in Tallahassee. But I mean, funny enough, Jermaine Johnson is my 4 spot, so that's a perfect segue to my next spot. But like you mentioned, I mean, 70 tackles, total tackles, 19 for loss, and 12 sacks in just 1 year in Tallahassee. And he was only a 3-star prospect when he committed to Georgia. And then when he entered the portal to come to Florida State, he was arguably the most important and most impactful player in the transfer portal, came to Tallahassee and clearly showed his talent. I mean, and in the NFL, he did just get traded. He's a new Tennessee Titan, but he was starting to show flashes. I mean, last year he was really starting to put on as an athlete. Did deal with some injuries in that loaded. I mean, the Jets had a loaded first round class that year, or I believe it was Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, and Jermaine Johnson, all in that first round. And all three of those players turned out to be absolutely spectacular. But I mean, I think Johnson's still going to be a great player in this league, and he's now paired up with Robert Saleh in Tennessee. And I believe that they overlapped when Saleh drafted him on the Jets. So clearly, Robert Saleh sees something in Jermaine Johnson that he wants to keep developing, and he's still really young. So I'm really excited to see what he's able to do. And I actually met him outside of I think it was right outside Madison Social, and I said what's up to him, and he's actually kind of a guy that I was surprised would even like really come back to campus, only being here for 1 year. But I mean, like, I haven't heard anything of him going back to Georgia. He spent 2 years there, but I talked to him for a little bit. Really cool guy. So really excited about what Jermaine Johnson can do in the NFL this year. But yeah, I have him as my 4 spot.
And hopefully he could stay healthy. That's been the biggest knock on him at the NFL level. But in my 4, this might be a little controversial. I am prepared to get a little hate for this, but I want to show love to Ryan Fitzgerald, FSU's pretty much automatic kicker for 3 years out of his 5 in the program as the starter. First team All-American in 2024. He ranks top 10 in pretty much every single kicker statistical category in his career at FSU. He had a very successful first year in the NFL, but I just remember that for him coming back after 2023, obviously, with how great of a season that was, him and Mastromano on the special teams unit in 2024 was pretty much the only bright spot for Florida State that season, as we know how that ended in the 2-10 campaign. But I wanted to give some love to Ryan Fitzgerald because he was in the program for 5 years. FSU has a very storied history with kickers, and Ryan Fitzgerald was that next installment and has been the best kicker for Mike Norvell. And we saw what Jake Weinberg did last year, so it's not easy. It's not like Norvell is a kicker whisperer, and maybe it's just Ryan Fitzgerald, but I got to show love to him. He's at my 4 spot.
Yeah, and I mean, you want to talk about we keep talking about how important this list is when you look at NFL talent. I mean, he was pretty damn good for the Panthers last year, and I do like the shout out of him, and he was the only bright spot you could say on the offense for 2024, making all those kicks, and that special teams unit was definitely one to remember. But I really like that shot because you mentioned the storied kickers. I mean, Janikowski and Graham Gano, like, these guys are known as like Florida State legends, the all-time leading points total. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure where Fitzgerald.
You got to include Roberto Aguayo in that.
Yes, I couldn't forget him. I mean, and that was kind of like the transition was kind of those 4 guys in a row, because after Aguayo, kind of no one really stood out as much as Fitzgerald. And I'm actually going to pull up the all-time leading point score for Florida State right now. And it wouldn't surprise me if Fitzgerald is near the top of that list. Struggling here to pull it up, but I mean, Fitzgerald, honestly, it's a great pull there for your 4 spot. And we do have a comment here from William McMillan. Thanks again for anyone that's watching and commenting. Feel free to comment whenever. Talking a little about recruiting, and this kind of is a teaser so we will not be live next week. Next Wednesday at 8 p.m. as we always are. But the following week, we're going to be doing an entire deep dive on Florida State's recruiting. We've both been following it deep enough, but we've kind of had some other ideas for the live show coming up. So we wanted to push the recruiting back, and it's going to slow down a little bit with official visits finally coming to an end this past weekend. But next week, we're going to take a deep dive into the 2027 class, and Florida State is starting to heat up a little bit. I am nervous with the Tashawn Poole, and I think we'll definitely talk about him more in 2 weeks' time. But, I mean, Florida State's been – apparently they're getting a lot of traction on some of these recruits that are committed elsewhere. So I'm pretty excited, and we will definitely go in depth about Poole next week. But I think we want to get back into the top 5. I believe it's my turn now. My 5th ranked player We keep talking about NFL talents, and I think my 5 player. I wanted to keep him in this top 5 because I had to shout him out. Kalen DeLoach, a 5-year Florida State player, and he's the only one, honestly, on my list and on my honorable mention that was with Florida State from the very beginning and stayed through the entire time. 3-year starter for Florida State, finishing at 212 total tackles, 24 and a half for a loss. And his 2023 campaign, the 13-0 start was insane. 10 and a half tackles for a loss, 7 sacks, 68 total tackles, an interception. And then honestly, my favorite play from that entire season, the forced fumble and fumble recovery against Clemson, that completely turned the game on its head at a 56-yard touchdown recovery. And if you were watching that game, I know you were watching that game, for anyone that was tuned in as well, I mean, it didn't look like it was going good for Florida State. Clemson just picked up a huge first down right before that, and DeLoach made the play of the season, saving that 13-0 start and blowing up the play. And that was just one of my favorite things to watch. So I do have a couple honorable mentions we'll talk about a little bit later, but I do have DeLoach in my 5 spot.
That's a great call. I agree with you on the forced fumble against Clemson, because without that play, I do not think FSU wins that game. And that was a big turning point in that season for FSU. Not in terms of, maybe the season gets derailed after that, but it kept the perfect season alive, and it showed FSU fans and the rest of the country really that this team was legit. But shout out Kalen DeLoach, another guy that went to the NFL and is having success there. At my 5, I'm going with Braden Fisk. He is another guy who has been in the NFL and was a little bit overshadowed by Verse on that LA Rams defensive line. His rookie year, he led the NFL, all rookies in the NFL in sacks with 9. In his rookie year as defensive tackle, only 1 year at FSU. He's kind of in that same boat as Jermaine Johnson. He had 43 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 6 sacks. Him and Verse on that defensive line were completely dominant. I had the chance to meet him and interview him a little bit at the 2024 Pro Day. He is a guy that was close with Joshua Farmer, some other guys on the defensive line for FSU. So it's good to see him come back. He was at Western Michigan for 4 years, comes to FSU for 1, makes an insane impact, 2nd-round pick to the Rams, has had great success at the NFL level, and loves FSU, the 1 year he had at FSU. And like that, I think we see a theme with that 2023 team, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think we've got, 3 out of the 11 players on that side of the ball just from that season alone. So it really speaks on how special that defensive side of the ball was. But I love Fisk personally, one of my favorite Seminoles from my time here. I think he should be clearly top 5, maybe a little bit higher. I definitely could flip him for Ryan Fitzgerald, but had to give Fitz the nod at 4. But Fisk comes in at 5.
Yeah, it was tough for me because I really wanted to give DeLoach his flowers, but I was between him and Fisk, and I had a feeling you would mention Fisk, so I was like, you know what, I'll let Cole take that. But we're talking about plays that saved Florida State's 13-0 season. I mean, that ACC championship game from him, telling the crowd to ring him after. I mean, he was one of the main reasons that Florida State was able to win that game. I mean, the defense alone obviously was the main reason Florida State hung in there, but I mean, Fisk, I also think, this year in the NFL even, I think he's going to have a phenomenal season because what he was able to do on the interior with Byron Young and Jared Verse. I mean, now you have Myles Garrett, who's going to be taking up a majority of the blockers, and I'm sure that Sean McVay and the Rams are going to be able to scheme ways to get Fisk attacking the quarterback more. And honestly, it could be a double-digit sack season with how much pressure you expect Myles Garrett to take off of him. But Fisk was one of my honorable mentions. And honestly, a pretty similar list right here with KJ Wash 7 saying JT 13 versus Keon, Renardo Green, and Fisk. It was hard for me not to put Fisk in my top 5, but Keon and Renardo Green are also 2 guys that I want to leave as an honorable mention. I just think that Deuce Robinson, even though the season as a whole wasn't as great as when Keon was here, obviously with that 2023 team we keep mentioning, I just think the talent and the playmaking that Deuce Robinson brings kind of puts him over Keon Coleman. But some of his touchdowns, I believe it was 11 in that 2023 campaign, were unreal. And some of the catches he made as well. That opening game against LSU, he was all over the place.
The founder of Keon County.
Yeah, that was, love it.
That was a movement in Tallahassee at one point. He was also one of my honorable mentions. Want to give a shout out to Azare Thomas because he was one of another guy that Norvell pretty much developed himself. I just don't think he was top five in terms of talent and production. I also want to give a shout out to Asante Samuel Jr. He was 3 years at FSU, but only one under Norvell. He's obviously gone on to have a ton of success in the NFL. Just got that huge extension from the Chargers, but those are the guy. And then I had Deuce Robinson as one of my honorable mentions too. He's not top five just yet. He needs one more season, and then he'll find his way up there. But those are my honorable mentions.
Yeah, I had Asante Samuel too because it's kind of just hard because that was like one of the first couple years under Norvell, the first year under Norvell, and it was kind of like it wasn't one of Norvell's guys, so to say. Keon Coleman, we mentioned Joshua Farmer, Trey Benson. I didn't mention. He arguably can be a top five guy as well. I mean, he has made his name as one of the staples of the Florida State running backs like all time. So many great ones coming out, and Benson was kind of that next guy in line. And I mean, hopefully we got a couple on the roster this year with potentially Wisner or Chroma being that next great Florida State running back. But that was pretty much it for the top five of the Mike Norvell tenure. Again, if you disagree, agree, you want to leave your own top five, make sure to leave it in the comment section down below, or even tweet at us by Gus Wilson, at Cole Kruger. If you hated my top five, you could just let me know. It's fine. I can take it on the chin. It's cool. I'm not bothered.
Tell us where we're wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't hide behind the computer screen.
Yeah, we don't need any of that.